Hello, this is Julius from Basic Financials. Today I'm going to do a little video about some economic things. You may well have been hearing in the news about how much the government is borrowing at the moment and how much it's having to pay out for all the help it's providing in relation to the coronavirus. And you're probably thinking, where are they getting the money from? And also, how is it going to get repaid? Now, before I talk about that, where they're getting the money from, I just want to take a little step back and describe something about what you hear about the budget deficit and government debt. So the government deficit. So there are two things there. Often they are muddled up when people talk about them on the news, or the politicians, probably just because they're getting mixed up between what they're trying to say, but often it's very confusing. When you hear politicians say we're going to eliminate the budget, but the deficit, they'll say the deficit normally, we're going to eliminate the deficit in 5 years. Now, I don't know whether they intend you to think that means that the government won't owe anything to anybody in 5 or 10 years. But that's not what it means. What that actually means is the deficit is the budget deficit, so year on year. So what they mean is that they're trying to eliminate or make it break even rather than borrowing each year. So each year they raise money through taxes and various other forms, and then they spend lots of money on things like education and welfare and all that sort of thing, roads, infrastructure. And normally they have a deficit, i.e. they spend more money than they raise, and that's what the deficit is. And each year, obviously, the deficit gets bigger and bigger if they keep borrowing each year, and then that's the government debt is how much they owe overall. Now, so there's quite a bit of confusion there. So when you hear them say they're going to eliminate the deficit in 5 years, that doesn't mean they're going to eliminate the overall amount, and they won't probably do that anyway. They haven't managed to do it, and obviously with coronavirus and everything that's happened there, they definitely haven't done, and they won't do for a while. So where does the government get money from? Who's got all this money? Well, what happens is they will go to the market with loan notes, effectively, or bonds, or another name for them is gilts, and so these take various forms. They might be could be for one day. Say we'll lend you, we owe you this money in 1 day's time, or it could be for 50 years. So we'll say, okay, you lend us £1 million, and we'll repay it to you in 50 years' time. Obviously, the incentive for doing that is interest. So the person who lends the money will expect some interest, and there'll be a fixed rate of interest on those gilts, and it depends when it's being done, how long it's for. So that's how the government raises money. Now, there are organisations, institutions out there with quite a lot of money. Because, for example, pension funds, you pay them premiums, and they hold quite a lot of cash. Insurance companies, they get your premiums, they got to do something with it. Obviously, they want to try and make sure that there's an element of safety in what they do with your money, so that it's there for when they have to pay things out, when they pay your pension out, or when they pay an insurance policy out if there's a claim. So part of the portfolio of investments of an insurance company or a pension scheme may well be gilts. One of the good things about gilts is that it should be fairly safe. It's not like stocks and shares are very volatile. It can go up and down, and if you've got to make a payout, you might be on a down rather than on up. And you need some sort of security about how much you've got there and when it's going to mature and when you've got the cash. So government debt or gilts should be fairly safe because the government back it. Now, obviously, it does depend on the government being good, and if you had Greek debt, some years back, you might have been a bit worried because the Greek government weren't so good, and they were finding it very difficult to go out to the market and raise money because people didn't want to borrow from them. At the moment, the UK government's pretty good. Hopefully, it will stay that way, so therefore they can go out and raise these loan notes or gilts and get money in. So that's how they raise the money. What also helps is there's a market for those actual gilts. So if somebody buys a gilt over 20 years, say, but after 10 years they decide, I don't want this anymore, they can actually sell that gilt in a market to somebody else. And those gilts have their own price. It depends on what the interest rate is, how long's left to go. There are some gilts out there that are paying interest at, say, 5%. Maybe if you've got one that's got 10 years left, it might have 5% interest on it, which sounds pretty good. But if it's, say, £1 million, you won't pay £1 million. You'll pay £1.5 million for it, for example, to take account of that, the higher interest rate than you can get now. So the prices of these gilts change in connection with the interest rate and how long there is left to go. So that helps. If there's a market for a debt, then that makes it easier for the government to go out and lend it, because people are more happy about the fact that they can get rid of it if they want to early. They don't have to wait until to the actual maturity date. Repaying this debt, the government will need to repay it sometime. They're probably going to need to raise taxes, but as I say, some of these gilts are over 50 years, so there's quite a long time scale to do it. And over the scheme of things, you hear about inflation, and debt with inflation, debt amounts after 10, 20, 30 years seem less than they were before. It's a bit like if you've got a mortgage over 25 years, when you got your mortgage out, it probably seems like a huge amount. It probably is a huge amount, but in 25 years' time, it won't seem like it was. It won't seem like it was so big. You think, that seemed like a big amount at the time we bought the house, but it's not so big. Whereas your house may well be twice as much as it was before. The debt's still the same. Anyway, that gives you some idea. But taxes are probably going to have to go up sometime to pay, but it's not going to be a sudden whack. I don't think it'll be over a long period of time. Anyway, I hope that gives you a bit of an understanding on government debt. It's a bit of a different one from what I'd usually do. If you've got any comments, if you'd like any more videos like that, I'm not an expert on it, but hopefully I can help a little bit. Let me know if in the comments below if you've got any ideas or questions. And if you like and subscribe as usual, if you do like it, and I'll see you again for another video soon. Thanks for listening.